Hello everyone, it is Ashwin Rao. As I gaze amongst my collection of shoes and boots here in mid-2022, I often ask myself, what the heck am I doing? Why do I have so many pairs of shoes and boots? And if you'd asked me before the pandemic about my shoe collection strategy, I would have basically laughed at you and said, I'm going to go to DSW and hook up a pair of some cemented shoes, slap them on my feet, make sure they didn't hurt my foot after a couple days, and call it a day until a year goes by and I say, you know what, those shoes that I bought are all scuffed up and messed up. It's time to get another pair. Obviously, that situation has changed. Why it has changed is probably a little bit more complicated to answer than the intent of this video, which is actually this pair of boots. But I will say that the pandemic, as well as my general interest and love of well-crafted goods, is what drew me to shoes. I'm one of those individuals who throughout the pandemic was still required to go to work, and so I was able to get a number of boots and shoes on deep discounts and layaways, including pairs such as this one by Antonio Macariello, others by brands such as Carmina, and others. And then I became increasingly dialed into the shoe and boot hobby and started discovering makers. So this is going to be a video where I grab a pair off of my collection or my shoe stand here and talk a little bit more about that shoe. And so today's video is going to feature Midas Bootmaker. And so Midas Bootmaker is effectively the bootmaking arm of Winson Shoemaker. So Winson, for those of you who don't know, burst onto the scene several years ago, hailing out of Bandung, Indonesia. I actually have a few pairs of Winson. This is a Midas Derby here, but right next to it is a three eyelet seamless heel Derby by Winson Shoemaker. And Midas emerged from Winson as the bootmaking arm of Winson, using high quality handmade boots, essentially dialed more towards rugged workwear. And so still with a number of dress shoe and designs that essentially identify its DNA as being from somebody who makes really high quality dress shoes. I've had a number of discussions with other enthusiasts and YouTubers about what it is about high quality shoes and boots that attracts us to this particular hobby. And I think it's just an appreciation of all things well made. I particularly have a love of cameras. I also enjoy high-end audio and watches. And so during the pandemic, when our lives became a lot more insular, I was still going to work, and I started identifying shoes as a way to kind of express my creative inclinations. And so Midas is part of that process. And so this is the Midas Spalla Derby, which is a plain toe derby boot. It's not a service boot. It has a different heel counter, but you can see it's got these sweeping lines, a plain toe, and a very unique welt construction that is part of what attracts me to Winson and Midas. To sum it up, this is their chain stitch Stairschuhen welt. The Stairschuhen welt is a modified Veldschuhen welt, but done in essentially two layers. You can see these two rows that are separated by the actual leather on the upper. And it's a Veldschuhen construction that provides more waterproofing and a few other features. The Stairschuhen, the chain stitch part of that Stairschuhen, I should say, is this more ornamental stitch that's done to 180 degrees. And you can see that the remainder of the stitch goes around the boot, all the way around the boot, 360 degrees. This is made from a beautiful tobacco floater leather, which is an Indonesian grain leather. I believe it's a milled grain leather. You can see it's got a robust grain pattern. It actually takes a shine quite well, as you can see right there. Midas does a really good job of getting the shoes ready for presentation as soon as you get it. You can see the pull tab, and you can see if I put the shoe on backwards here on the tree, we're going to get a little into the back details of the heel here. So you can see this arcing and swooping lines on the heel counter along with the pull tab that blends into the remainder of the heel. You see the side panel has this stitching that provides the detailing, and obviously the curve of the facing here, which you can see from the back and then just showing you it from the front here as well. Makes for some beautiful sweeping lines. And I will say that this boot has garnered some of the most attention of any of the boots I own in terms of its design. And yet this is one of my more affordable boots because I used a local Indonesian leather supplied by Midas. And while the welting did cost a little bit more, the upcharge to go to stair chewing from something like Stitch Down or the chain stitch stair chewing is really only a $20 upcharge in the overall cost of the boot. So I decided to go for it. This boot is built on the Maryland last, which is a boot last, but a somewhat more dressy boot last. As you can see, I'm going to try to put this boot up here so you can see it. Oh gosh, it's going to fall over. No, it's not going to fall over. Perfect. So you can see it's got a block heel with a reasonable high shine and a natural edge finish. You can see now the boot standing more upright against my Monroe Heritage here. It's got a nice plain toe, rounded, somewhat asymmetric, almond-shaped last with a nice but not overly done toe spring and a Vibram 430 mini lug sole that you can see there. They use leather midsoles in a stacked formation and a slight contrast stitching. This was procured through the House of Agen. I'm not sure if that's exactly how it's pronounced, but the House of Agen or Agen is an outfit run by Andrew Gong out of Australia, who offers both Midas as well as Matina shoes, which are both available as made-to-order shoes where you can pick a number of design elements, including the welt, the sole, the upper, how many eyelets you wish, and a variety of other details, such as the last, which really gives you the ability to craft your boots. And so, as you can see, I'm particularly happy about this particular boot. You know, it stays here on the top row, which makes it A1 special sauce. Just kidding. It is really just there on the top row because, hey, shouldn't boots be on the top row? And it's a little harder to fit them on the bottom row, even though my second row here is also boots. And so, all in all, Midas Bootmaker, their Spalla Derby boot. It's one of their 2 Derby boots, including their service boot, which has more of a notable heel counter. This has more sweeping lines. I actually have a second Spalla boot coming, this time with a mock toe or a hand-stitched apron that will be included to provide a slightly different look. And so it's a boot I've long wanted to feature, and I figured it was time to show it off. Look how clean this detailing is here. Very impressive work. The grain leather has a really soft handle, and obviously handles creasing quite well. It doesn't really crease that much. And it takes a high shine. One of the things I love about Midas that I think is maybe slightly underappreciated is how clean their work really is. You're talking bespoke level, or certainly high quality shoemaking level craftsmanship here in terms of how the boots are made. There have been others, including Jake from Almost Vintage Style, who really like Winston, but feel like the boot lasts that are currently available from Midas could use some work. I heartily disagree, although I like, and I've learned a ton from Jake. I find that the Maryland last is a dress boot last that suits the Spalla Derby style well. Now, granted, I'm not as aggressively a workwear boot style guy. I tend to like dressier boots, and so maybe that's part of the aesthetic, because I think Jake likes more rugged designs. But we certainly are all, you know, entitled to all our own personal opinions. And so just pulling away as we get back to the shoe collection to wrap this bad boy up. The Midas Boot Spalla Derby, tobacco floater leather, chain stitch stair shoeing.